A millionaire was about to sign and lose everything, until a poor janitor whispered in his ear, and what he did next surprised everyone. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy. David Miller was about to sign the contract that would seal the biggest business merger of his career. Sterling Corporation promised to take his company to a whole new level. Billions were at stake. He was focused, just seconds away from signing the contract when the door to the room opened. Anna, one of the cleaning staff, walked in with her cart. "Sorry, I'll just empty the trash real quick," she said softly and respectfully. No one seemed to mind. They were all too busy celebrating ahead of time. Anna walked over to the trash can next to David's chair. She bent down, pretending to adjust the bags. Then she leaned slightly to the side, bringing her face close to his. That's when she whispered, in a barely audible voice, "Don't sign. It's a trap." David froze. His hand stopped just millimeters from the paper. The pen slipped from his fingers and landed softly on the wooden table. "What?" he whispered, stunned. Anna slowly stood up and looked at him seriously, then turned her eyes away as if nothing had happened. She picked up the trash can and started pushing her cart toward the door like it was just part of her routine. But David couldn't take his eyes off her. David? Leandro, his longtime business partner and friend, leaned toward him with a strange smile. "Everything all right, Mr. Miller?" Javier asked from across the table. "Are you ready to sign?" David swallowed hard. The contract was still there, untouched. The folder with the merger details was open in front of everyone. He looked at Leandro's face, then Javier's. And finally, at the door, where Anna was just about to leave. The whole world seemed a little off balance. "I need 5 minutes," he said suddenly, standing up abruptly. 5 minutes? Leandro tried to keep his tone light, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Is everything okay? I need to take care of something," David replied as he walked toward the door. "Mr. Miller, everyone's here, all the terms have been reviewed, there's nothing left to change," Javier protested, starting to sound annoyed. 5 minutes, David repeated firmly. Without waiting for any more objections, he stepped out the door and pushed it closed behind him. Anna was just a few steps down the hallway, pushing her cart. When she heard his quick footsteps behind her, she stopped. "You," David said firmly, pointing at her. "With me. Now." She hesitated, surprised, but nodded. They walked in silence to a small break room. David walked in first and she followed. He shut the door firmly behind them and looked at her with a controlled intensity. "Explain, now," he said, arms crossed and eyes locked on hers. "And convince me you're not completely insane for interrupting me like that." Anna stood there holding a trash bag in one hand. "I know how it sounds, but I overheard conversations, things no one else did. They're setting you up." "Who's they?" "Sterling, and your partner, Leandro." Her voice shook slightly, but then steadied. "They're using the contract to transfer hidden debts and destabilize your company. If you sign it, you'll be giving everything away." David stared at her for a long moment. Part of him wanted to laugh. The other part couldn't ignore the chill that ran down his spine. "What's your name?" "Anna." "How long have you worked here?" 8 months, on the night shift." "All right, Anna." He stepped closer, his gaze firm. "Let me be clear. If this is a lie, a conspiracy theory, or some attempt to get attention, you're fired. On the spot." Anna bit her lip, but didn't look away. "I understand, and I accept that. But if I stay silent and you lose everything, I'd never forgive myself." David turned his face and looked at his reflection in the glass wall. Chicago kept spinning below, but his world had just cracked. This woman had nothing to gain and everything to lose, yet she was standing there anyway. "Do you have proof?" he asked without looking at her. "I do. Photos, records, screenshots, I can show you tonight." 7 o'clock, right here in this room, he said, nodding toward the space. "Bring everything. If you don't convince me, it'll be your last day here." Anna just nodded. David waited for her to leave before pressing his forehead against the cold wall. Outside, the contract was still waiting for his signature. But now, for the first time in his entire career, he was hesitating. David walked back into the meeting room, his heart pounding. All eyes turned to him as he pushed the door open. Leandro was leaning over the table, speaking quietly with Javier, but straightened up quickly when he saw him. "Did you take care of what you needed?" Leandro asked, his smile not reaching his eyes. Yes. David walked toward the table but didn't sit down. He looked at the contract, then at the faces around him. Actually, I think I need to review a few clauses again. Review? Javier frowned. Mr. Miller, we spent weeks going over every detail of this document. And that's exactly why I want to take one last look. David picked up the folder and closed it firmly. Let's reschedule for tomorrow. The silence in the room was tense. Leandro stood up slowly, his fists pressed against the table. David, this doesn't make sense. We're wasting valuable time. Sterling has other interested parties, you know that. Then let them be. David stared coldly at his childhood friend. One night won't make a difference. It will. Javier slammed his hand on the table. The market's unstable. The stock is up. It's now or never. David watched the man's agitated reaction. Anna had been right about something. This pressure wasn't normal. The decision is mine. He took the contract and placed it in his briefcase. I'll see you tomorrow. Without giving them a chance to argue, David left the room, leaving behind a group of visibly angry men. At exactly 7 o'clock, David walked into the break room. Anna was already there, sitting in one of the chairs with a small backpack on her lap. She stood as soon as she saw him. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice steadier than in the morning. Show me what you've got. David sat across from her at the small round table. Anna opened her backpack and took out her phone. Her hands trembled slightly as she scrolled through the photos. It all started 3 weeks ago. I was cleaning Leandro's office when I heard voices in the next room. She paused and took a deep breath. I recognized his voice and a woman's. They were talking about you. David leaned forward. Go on. Her name is Sophia. Blonde, tall, always wearing expensive clothes. Anna slid her finger on the screen and showed him a blurry photo taken through a crack in the door. This is her. David felt a chill run down his spine. Sophia Delgado, his ex-girlfriend. The one who ended things 2 years ago, saying they were too different. How is she involved in this? She and Leandro, they're together now, and they're planning something against you. Anna swiped to the next photo. Listen to this. She hit play on a recording. The audio wasn't great, but the voices were clear enough. Once he signs, we'll have full control of the assets. Are you sure David suspects nothing? David's always been too naive to notice when he's being betrayed. It was true with me, and it will be true now. What if he finds out? He won't. Trust me, Sophia. In 48 hours, we'll own his company. David ran a hand over his face, the world spinning around him. Leandro's voice was unmistakable, and Sophia's laugh, the one that once made him fall in love, now sounded like poison. Is there more? He asked, his voice rough. Anna nodded and flipped through more photos. Documents snapped in a hurry, contracts with clauses different from the ones David had seen, bank transfers to accounts he didn't recognize. They changed the original contract. Anna pointed to one of the images. See this section? In the version you have, it says you'll keep 60% control. But in the real one, the one they'll use when you sign, you're left with only 20%. This is... David took the phone and brought it closer. This is document fraud. It's a crime. And that's not all. Anna moved to the next photo. This $15 million transfer happened last week, from Sterling's account to Leandro's personal account. David stood up and walked to the window. Chicago sparkled below in the darkness, but to him, everything felt dim. Why? He murmured, more to himself. Leandro's been my best friend for 15 years. We went to college together, built everything from scratch. Sometimes people change when there's a lot of money involved. Anna said, putting the phone away. Or maybe they were always like that, and you just didn't want to see it. David turned around, still trying to process everything. Why are you telling me this? You could lose your job. Anna hesitated. Because it's the right thing to do. I can't just stay quiet and watch someone get betrayed like that. David studied her. There was more to it. He could feel it. But Anna clearly wasn't ready to say it. These pieces of evidence. How can I be sure they're real? I understand why you don't trust me, Anna said as she put her phone away. But if you sign tomorrow, you'll lose everything. They've already planned every step. David stayed silent for a long time. Part of him desperately wanted not to believe it. Leandro was like a brother, but the evidence? I need more proof, he said at last. I need to be absolutely sure. I can get more, but it'll be risky. Then be careful, David said, looking straight at her. If this is true, if Leandro really is betraying me. He couldn't finish the sentence. We'll find out the truth, Anna said firmly. After she left, David stayed alone in the room, staring out the window. For the first time in 15 years of friendship, he was doubting Leandro, and that doubt was growing inside him. The next morning, David arrived at the office earlier than usual. He'd spent the whole night thinking about the evidence Anna had shown him. The images of the forged documents wouldn't leave his mind, nor would Leandro's voice in that incriminating recording. He needed more answers. David went straight to Human Resources. He asked to see Ana Santos's file. Martha, the HR employee, looked surprised. "The cleaning lady's file?" she asked, adjusting her glasses. "Did something happen?" "Just a routine check," David lied. "I need to confirm a few details." Martha brought him a thin folder. David opened it, and his eyes widened when he saw the attached resume. Ana Santos, 28 years old, degree in business administration from Northwestern University with a specialization in corporate finance. Previous experience in business consulting at McKinsey & Company. "McKinsey?" David murmured, stunned. "Excuse me?" Martha leaned over to see what he was reading. "It's nothing, thank you." David quickly closed the folder and handed it back. He left HR with his mind racing. Anna had worked at McKinsey, one of the most respected consulting firms in the world. How did someone with that resume end up working as a janitor? During lunch, David looked for Anna in the halls. He found her on the 12th floor, cleaning the windows in one of the smaller conference rooms. "Anna," he said, approaching her. "I need to talk to you." She turned around, surprised to see him. "Did something happen? Did you find out more about Leandro?" "Actually, I found something out about you." David crossed his arms. Northwestern University, McKinsey & Company, corporate finance. Anna's face went pale. She dropped the cleaning cloth and took a deep breath. "You looked into my file. Why didn't you tell me who you really are?" Anna looked around to make sure they were alone before answering. "Because it doesn't matter," she said bitterly. "It doesn't matter how many degrees I have or where I used to work. To everyone here, I'm just the Latina cleaning lady." "But McKinsey, that's impressive. How did I end up here?" Anna cut him off. "You want the truth? I worked at McKinsey for 2 years. I was good at it, really good. But when it came time for promotions, there was always a reason why I didn't move up." David listened closely, noticing the pain in her eyes. "First, they said I needed more experience. Then, that my communication style didn't match the company culture." Anna gave a humorless laugh. Translation: "I was too competent for my position, but didn't look the part for a leadership role." "That's discrimination. You could have filed a lawsuit." "With what money?" Anna picked up the water bucket. "And who would believe a Latina over a company like McKinsey?" David stayed silent, trying to process the injustice. "And your family? You mentioned a sister." "Maria is 22, Anna said softly. "She was born with a congenital heart defect. We need $200,000 for surgery. When I was let go from McKinsey," she paused. "Actually, when they asked me to resign, I had to take whatever job I could find." "That's why you're here." "That's why I'm here." Anna nodded. "The health plan covers part of Maria's treatment, and even though the pay is low, it helps with her medication. I can't afford to be unemployed." David felt a tightness in his chest. Here was a brilliant woman, educated at one of the best universities in the country, with experience at a top firm, working as a janitor because of prejudice and family needs. "Anna, I had no idea." "Well, now you do." She went back to cleaning the windows. "That's why I recognized the forged documents right away. I spent years analyzing corporate contracts. Those discrepancies stood out to me immediately. And that's why you warned me about the betrayal." Anna stopped cleaning and looked straight at him. "Partly, yes, but also because," she hesitated, "because you're different from the other executives here. I've been watching you for months. You treat everyone with respect no matter their role, and when I saw they were planning to destroy you the same way they ruined my career." "You couldn't stay quiet." "Exactly." David watched her for several long seconds. Ana Santos wasn't just a cleaning lady who had overheard something by chance. She was a highly qualified professional who had recognized a corporate fraud and decided to act, even if it meant risking the little she had. Anna, when all this is over. David? Leandro's voice echoed down the hallway. They both turned to see Leandro approaching, a curious look on his face. What are you doing here? Leandro asked, glancing from David to Anna. Just checking on how the cleaning is going, David replied quickly. You know how particular I am. Leandro looked at Anna, who had gone back to wiping the windows, pretending not to hear their conversation. Since when do you personally care about the cleaning staff? Leandro's tone clearly showed his suspicion. Since I decide to pay more attention to details. David forced a smile. Speaking of which, did you reschedule the meeting with Sterling for this afternoon? Yes, 3 o'clock. Leandro kept watching Anna. I hope there won't be any more hesitation. Of course not. David began walking toward the elevator. Let's grab lunch. I need to go over a few contract adjustments with you. Leandro followed him, but not before casting one last suspicious look toward Anna. At the elevator, Leandro pressed the button and turned to David. You've been acting strange since yesterday, he said, his voice probing. Is there something I should know about? David chose his words carefully. Just pre-negotiation nerves. You know how I get before big decisions. David, we've been friends for 15 years. We built this company together. Leandro placed a hand on his shoulder. If something's bothering you, you can tell me. David looked into his best friend's eyes, searching for any sign of deception. But Leandro looked genuinely concerned. I'm fine, Carlos. I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing. Of course we are, Leandro smiled. This merger will make us the clear leaders in the market. Trust me. The elevator doors opened, and they stepped inside. But as they descended, David couldn't stop thinking about Anna's words. Sometimes money changes people. And for the first time in 15 years, he was beginning to wonder if he really knew Leandro. That afternoon, Anna was finishing up cleaning the executive bathroom on the 15th floor when she heard footsteps coming down the hallway. It was nearly 5 o'clock. Most executives had already gone home. She frowned, curious who might still be around. Through the slightly open door, she recognized Leandro's deep voice speaking to someone. A woman responded, and Anna felt a chill run through her. It was Sophia. Are you sure it's her? Sophia asked, her voice sharp with irritation. Absolutely. I looked into it after seeing David talking to her yesterday, Leandro replied, his voice getting closer. Anna Santos, 28 years old, former McKinsey, too smart for her own good. Anna held her breath, pressing herself against the bathroom wall. Her heart pounded when she realized they were talking about her. And do you think she heard our conversation last week? Sophia sounded worried. I'm sure of it. I checked the security cameras. She was cleaning my office at the exact time we were finalizing the details. Leandro paused. And today David was acting completely different. He backed out of signing yesterday, asked a ton of questions about clauses we'd already reviewed. Damn, Sophia's voice rose in panic. If David finds out about us, about the money we transferred, he won't. Not if we act fast, Leandro cut her off. I need to get rid of the cleaning lady before she causes more problems. Anna covered her mouth with both hands, trying to control her breathing. They knew she had discovered their plan. How? Sophia asked. In the most humiliating way possible. I'll accuse her of stealing, right in front of everyone. Leandro's voice was cold. No one will believe a fired janitor over me. And if David tries to defend her? David's been my best friend for 15 years. Even if he has doubts, he won't confront me publicly over a cleaning lady. Leandro gave a quiet laugh. He's way too predictable. Anna closed her eyes, feeling tears start to form. She had risked everything to warn David about the betrayal, and now she was going to be destroyed for it. When? Sophia asked. Now. I'll call her to the main auditorium, announce an urgent safety meeting for all employees. The footsteps faded, and Anna stayed in the restroom a few more minutes, trying to regain her composure. Her hands were trembling as she thought about Maria, her sick sister who depended on the health plan from this job. If she was fired for cause, she would lose not only her salary but also the medical coverage. The building's intercom crackled. All employees must report immediately to the main auditorium for an urgent safety meeting. Repeating, all employees to the main auditorium. Anna took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and stepped out of the restroom. No matter what happened, she wouldn't give Leandro the satisfaction of seeing her break. The auditorium was packed. Employees from every department whispered to one another, curious about the sudden meeting. Anna entered from the back, keeping her head high, and stood near the back wall. David sat in the front row, alongside other executives. He looked around the auditorium, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. Anna saw confusion in his face, as if he didn't know the reason for the meeting either. Leandro stepped onto the stage, carrying a manila folder. His face was serious, almost grim. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," his voice echoed through the microphone. "Unfortunately, I need to address a very serious issue involving the security of our company." A nervous murmur spread through the room. Yesterday, we discovered that confidential documents were photographed and removed from the executive offices. Leandro paused for effect. "This is not only a breach of contract, but also a case of corporate espionage." Anna felt a chill run through her. She knew exactly where this was going. "After a detailed investigation with our security team, we've identified the person responsible." Leandro looked directly at Anna. "Ana Santos, from the cleaning staff. Would you please come forward?" All eyes turned to Anna. She felt hundreds of stares on her, some curious, others already judging. Her legs were shaking, but she walked to the front of the room, keeping her dignity despite the humiliation she knew was coming. "Miss Santos?" Leandro continued, his voice taking on a cold, authoritative tone. "Photos of confidential company documents were found on your phone. How do you explain that?" Anna looked at David, sitting in the front row. He seemed shocked, caught between surprise and confusion. She could see the struggle in his eyes. Anna began, but Leandro cut her off. "In addition," he said, "security cameras show you entering executive offices outside of your scheduled cleaning hours." He opened the folder and pulled out printed photos. These images were taken last week. The photos were passed along the front row. Anna saw David take one, and his face twisted into what looked like disappointment. "Miss Santos, theft of intellectual property is a federal crime," Leandro said, stepping closer to her on the stage. "However, given your previously clean record, we're offering termination for cause instead of involving law enforcement. This isn't fair." Anna finally found her voice. "I was trying to protect..." "Protect what?" Leandro interrupted harshly. "Your own interests? Were you planning to sell this information to our competitors?" "No, I was protecting Mr. Miller from..." "Enough!" Leandro slammed his fist on the podium. "I won't allow a dishonest employee to defame this company or its executives." Anna looked at David in desperation, silently pleading for him to say something, to defend her. But David remained silent, his face a mask of inner conflict. "Security, please escort Miss Santos out of the building," Leandro signaled to two uniformed guards. "She is no longer permitted on our premises." "David!" Anna cried out as the guards approached. "You know I was trying to help. You saw the evidence." David stood up slowly, and for a moment, Anna thought he was finally going to speak, that he would stand up against the injustice happening right in front of him. But then he looked away, his jaw tight. "I'm sorry it's come to this, Anna," he said softly, almost in a whisper. "But the evidence is very clear." Anna's heart shattered. The man she had risked everything for, the one she tried to save from devastating betrayal, was choosing to believe his betrayer. "David, please." Her voice broke. "You know who I really am. You know I would never." "That's enough, Miss Santos." Leandro stepped down from the stage and walked toward her, a cruel smile on his face. "The act is over." The security guards grabbed Anna by the arms, but she pulled away with dignity. "I can walk on my own." Her voice was steady again, even though tears were streaming down her face. As she was being escorted out of the auditorium, Anna stopped and turned to David one last time. "When you find out the truth," she said loud enough for everyone to hear, "remember you had the chance to do the right thing today, and you chose not to." David closed his eyes, as if her words were physical blows. Anna was escorted out of the building under the watchful eyes of hundreds of co-workers. Some looked sorry for her. Others looked relieved that the problem had been taken care of. On the sidewalk, one of the guards handed her a box with her few personal belongings. "I'm sorry, Miss Santos," said the older guard, clearly embarrassed. "Orders are orders." Anna nodded, took the box, and started walking toward the subway station. With each step, she felt the weight of humiliation and betrayal. But even more than that, she felt the heavy burden of knowing that David was walking straight into a trap, and now she had no way to warn him. Back in the auditorium, David remained seated even after all the other employees had left. Leandro came over and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know this is hard, David. She seemed like a good employee," he said, his voice full of fake sympathy. "But sometimes people let us down." David looked at his friend, searching for any sign of dishonesty. But Leandro looked genuinely concerned. "The evidence was very clear," David murmured, mostly to himself. "Yes, it was," Leandro agreed. "But now we can focus on what really matters. The merger with Sterling. Our company is about to become an empire, David. We can't let disloyal employees ruin our dream." David nodded slowly, but a part of him, a small but persistent part, couldn't forget the honest desperation in Anna's voice when she called his name. "Shall we reschedule the signing for tomorrow morning?" Leandro asked. "First thing, no more delays." "Yes," David stood up, still trying to process everything. "First thing." As he left the auditorium, David couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. And somewhere in the city, Ana Santos walked the streets of Chicago, carrying a box of belongings and a broken heart, still determined to find a way to save the man who hadn't been able to save her. David couldn't sleep at all that night. The image of Anna being escorted out of the building wouldn't leave his mind. The desperation in her voice, the way she called out his name, begging him to stand up for her. And he had stayed silent. At 3 a.m, he gave up trying to sleep. He got dressed quickly and drove to the office. The building was empty, with only the night guards patrolling the halls. David used his access card to take the executive elevator. Something about Leandro's accusations didn't make sense. Anna had shown deep knowledge of corporate contracts, had spotted discrepancies that only someone with financial experience would notice. Why would a woman with that kind of expertise try to sell company secrets? And why would she risk everything to warn him about a betrayal if she was involved in corporate espionage? David reached his office and turned on his computer. He decided to investigate on his own. He started by reviewing the merger files with Sterling Corporation. He opened every document, every spreadsheet, every attached contract. Everything seemed normal at first glance, but Anna had mentioned hidden clauses. If they were real, David knew they would be hard to find. 3 hours later, he found the first irregularity. In the main contract on page 47, there was a reference to Addendum C that David had never seen before. According to the document, this addendum included technical specifications and post-merger asset distribution. But when he looked for Addendum C in the digital folder, it wasn't there. Intrigued, David accessed the company's main server. He used his CEO credentials to browse the most protected files. Finally, in an encrypted folder he had never seen before, he found what he was looking for. Addendum C, Post-Merger Asset Distribution. David opened the file and felt his blood run cold. According to the document, after the merger, 80% of Miller Technologies' assets would be transferred to a subsidiary called Sterling International Holdings. David had never heard of this company. He kept reading and found out that Sterling International Holdings was registered in the Cayman Islands and had only 2 main shareholders, Leandro Vega and Sofia Delgado. "This can't be," David murmured, reading the document 3 more times just to be sure. But it was all there, in small print and complex legal terms. The plan was both clever and cruel. David would sign the contract thinking he was keeping majority control of the company, when in fact he'd be handing over almost everything to a shell company secretly controlled by his best friend and his ex-girlfriend. David printed the document and kept digging. Using his CEO credentials, he accessed the company's banking records. What he found confirmed his worst fears. In the last 2 months, several so-called merger preparation transfers had been made, totaling $23 million. The money had supposedly gone to Sterling Corporation accounts, but David noticed something strange. The account numbers didn't match the ones listed in the original contract. Using his access to the corporate banking system, David traced where the money actually went. $23 million had been transferred to a personal account under the name L. Vega, Leandro Vega. 15 years of friendship. David whispered, feeling like he'd been punched in the gut. But there was more. David found emails between Leandro and Sterling executives that he had never been copied on. The messages revealed that the merger was really a hostile takeover in disguise. Sterling Corporation wasn't even a real, active company. It was just a front for the scam Leandro and Sophia had set up. In one email dated 3 weeks ago, Leandro wrote, "David is completely naive. 15 years of friendship blinded him to the possibility of betrayal. By the time he realizes what happened, we'll already have full control of the assets and be out of the country. Sophia was right. He really is too predictable." David had to stop reading. His hands were shaking as he held the mouse. His best friend, the man who had been the best man at his wedding, who cried with him when his mother passed away, who stood beside him while they built the company, was planning to destroy him completely. He kept investigating and uncovered even more of the plan. After David signed the contract, Leandro would announce an emergency restructuring, claiming made-up financial issues. David would be forced to step down as CEO for the good of the company, and Leandro would take full control. Then, all the real assets would be transferred to Sterling International Holdings, leaving David with nothing but debts and legal responsibilities. The plan was so well thought out that David felt both disgust and a twisted sense of respect. Leandro had spent months, maybe even years, planning every single detail. David also found recorded phone calls stored by the company's security system. One of them, from 2 weeks ago, was between Leandro and Sophia. "Leandro, are you sure David won't suspect anything?" Sophia: "Leandro, I dated him for 2 years. I know every one of his weaknesses. David always trusts people too much. It's his biggest strength and his biggest flaw. What if he finds out before the signing?" "He won't. But if he does, we have the forged documents. We can claim he was trying to commit fraud himself, with my word against his." "You really hate him that much?" "It's not hate, it's ambition. David was a good boyfriend, but he was always limited, too small for my dreams. With you, I can have everything I've ever wanted." David paused the recording, feeling sick. Sophia had ended things with him 2 years ago, saying they wanted different things in life. In truth, she'd just been looking for someone more ambitious and more willing to cross lines. By 6 a.m, David had gathered enough evidence to put Leandro and Sophia in prison. But he also realized something painful. Ana Santos had tried to save him, and he had walked away when she needed him most. He remembered her words from the day before. "When you find out the truth, remember you had a chance to do the right thing today, and you chose not to." She was right, completely right, and now David had to find a way to fix the terrible mistake he had made. But first, he had to make sure Leandro and Sophia didn't find out that he knew the truth. The signing meeting was set for 9 a.m., just 3 hours away. David copied all the files onto a flash drive and emailed them to himself from 3 different accounts. Then he cleared his browser history and shut down the computer. As he was leaving the office, his phone rang. It was Leandro. "David? I'm glad you picked up," Leandro said, his voice sounding falsely concerned. "I couldn't sleep after what happened yesterday with the cleaning lady. I know it shook you up." "I'm okay," David replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "It was tough, but you were right. The evidence was clear." "I'm glad you understand." David could hear the relief in Leandro's voice. "Are you ready for today's meeting? Our big moment has finally arrived." "Of course. 9 o'clock, right?" "That's right. David, I want you to know that, no matter what happens in business, our friendship will always mean the most to me." David closed his eyes, feeling the sting of that hypocritical statement. "To me too, Leandro. To me too." When he hung up, David knew exactly what he had to do, not just to save his company, but to make things right for the brave woman who had risked everything to warn him about the betrayal. Ana Santos had tried to save him. Now it was his turn to save her. But first, he had to find her. And after humiliating her in front of everyone the day before, David wasn't sure she'd be willing to speak to him again. Looking out the window of his office, watching Chicago wake up under the morning sun, David Miller prepared for the most important fight of his life. A fight not just for his company, but for his own soul. Because he had learned a painful lesson. Sometimes the most important people in our lives are the ones brave enough to tell us the truth we don't want to hear. And Ana Santos had done exactly that. Now it was time to honor her courage with his own. David canceled the meeting with Sterling Corporation, claiming a family emergency. Leandro was furious, but David didn't care. He had more important things to take care of. Using HR records, David found Ana's address, 847 Lincoln Street, apartment 2B, in the Pilsen neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. It was one of the city's poorer areas, mostly Latino, where many immigrant families worked hard to get by with low-paying jobs. David had never set foot in Pilsen before. As he drove down the narrow streets, he couldn't help but notice how different it was from the world he knew. Old brick buildings with rusty fire escapes, small shops with signs in Spanish, children playing on cracked sidewalks. It was a world far removed from the shiny skyscrapers of the financial district. He parked his BMW in front of a 3-story building that had clearly seen better days. The paint was peeling, and some windows had cracks covered with tape. David climbed the creaky stairs to the second floor. He stopped in front of door 2B and took a deep breath before knocking. Shuffling footsteps approached. The door opened just a crack, held by a safety chain. Through the opening, David saw part of Anna's face. Her eyes were swollen like she'd been crying all night. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice cold as ice. "Ana, I need to talk to you. I found out the truth about Leandro and Sofia." "Oh, you just found out?" Ana gave a bitter laugh. "How convenient, after you humiliated me in front of 200 people. Please, just let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." Ana started to close the door, but David placed his hand against it. "Ana, you were right about everything. I found the proof, the contract, the bank transfers, the shell company, everything." Ana paused but didn't open the door further. "And what do you want me to do with that now? You already fired me. You ruined my name. I have nothing left to lose or to gain." "Yes, you do. I can clear your name, I can." "Ana, who is it?" A weak voice called from inside the apartment. Ana sighed and looked at David through the crack. "It's my sister. She's not well." "Please," David said. 5 minutes. I just want to apologize, properly." Ana was silent for a long moment, clearly torn. Finally, she removed the chain and opened the door. The apartment was small and modest, but spotlessly clean and neatly arranged. The furniture was old but well cared for. Family photos on the wall showed Ana and a younger woman smiling during happier times. "Maria," Ana called. "We have a visitor." A young woman around 22 came into the room. She was clearly Ana's sister. Same brown eyes, same delicate features, but she looked very ill. Her skin was pale, and she moved slowly, as if every step took effort. "Hi," Maria said with a faint smile. "You must be Ana's boss." David felt a tightness in his chest. Ana had lost her job but hadn't told her sister yet. "Former boss," Ana corrected quickly. "David, this is my sister Maria. Maria, this is David Miller." Maria extended a frail hand and David shook it gently. "Ana talks a lot about you," Maria said. "She says you're not like other bosses, more human." David looked at Ana, who turned her eyes away, clearly embarrassed. "Maria, why don't you go back to your room and rest?" Ana suggested. "The doctor said you need to save your strength." "All right." Maria headed slowly toward the hallway, but stopped. "It was nice meeting you, Mr. Miller. Please take care of my sister. She's the bravest person I know." After Maria left the room, David turned to Ana. "Why didn't you tell me how serious her condition is?" "I told you she needed surgery." Ana sat on the worn-out couch. "I didn't think I needed to go into detail." "What kind of surgery?" Ana hesitated before answering. "A heart valve transplant. Maria was born with a congenital defect. Her current valve is failing. Without the surgery," her voice broke, "doctors say she might have 6 months." David felt like he'd been punched. Ana had been dealing with all this on her own, working as a janitor to keep her sister's health insurance, and he had fired her right when she needed it most. "How much does the surgery cost?" $200,000. Ana wiped her eyes. "The company's health plan covered 60%. I was saving for the rest, doing extra work on the weekends." "Ana, I can pay." "No." She stood up abruptly. "I don't want your pity or your charity." "It's not pity, it's responsibility." David stood up too. "I made a terrible mistake yesterday. I treated you unfairly." "You didn't treat me unfairly." Ana's voice was filled with pain. "You betrayed me. You knew who I was, you knew I was trying to help you, and you still said nothing while Leandro humiliated me. I was confused, torn between your best friend and a janitor. Anna cut him off. And you chose your best friend, even knowing he was lying. David ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. You're right. Completely right. I was cowardly and selfish, but now I know the truth, and I want to make things right. Some things can't be made right, David. Anna walked over to the window, looking out at the street. I lost my job, my reputation, and more importantly, I lost Maria's health coverage. All because I tried to do the right thing. Let me help, please. Why? Anna turned to face him. Because you feel guilty? Because you want to ease your conscience? Because you're the bravest person I've ever met. His words came out with a sincerity that even surprised David. You risked everything to save me from betrayal, and I abandoned you when you needed me most. Anna studied him for a long moment. Maria needs the surgery in 2 weeks. Without the insurance, I'll have to pay for it myself. I don't have the money. I'll pay today. And in return, nothing. David shook his head. Absolutely nothing. It's the least I can do. Anna gave a humorless laugh. The least you can do is leave my house and my life. I don't trust you anymore, David. You had the chance to show who you really are, and you did. Anna, please leave. She walked to the door and opened it. Maria needs rest, and I need to look for another job. David hesitated at the door. This isn't over. I'm going to expose Leandro and Sofia. I'll clear your name. Do whatever you want, Anna said without looking him in the eye. But do it without me. David walked out of the apartment with a heavy heart. As he went down the stairs, he heard the door close behind him and the lock turn. Outside, sitting in his BMW, David looked at the modest building where Anna and Maria were struggling to survive. He had uncovered Leandro's betrayal, but had lost something much more valuable, the trust of the only person who had tried to save him. Now he had to find a way to earn that trust back. Because he was starting to realize that Ana Santos wasn't just the key to exposing the betrayal, she was becoming the most important person in his life. Over the next 3 days, David couldn't stop thinking about Ana and Maria. He had postponed the merger with Sterling Corporation indefinitely, citing the need for more legal reviews. Leandro was becoming more and more nervous and pushy, but David managed to buy time. Meanwhile, he quietly looked for ways to help the Santos sisters without Ana finding out. He couldn't just show up at their door with a check. Ana had made it clear she wouldn't accept direct help from him. On Wednesday morning, David had an idea. He called Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where Maria was being treated, and managed to speak with Dr. Rodriguez, the cardiologist in charge of the case. Dr. Rodriguez, my name is David Miller. I'd like to discuss Maria Santos' case. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't share patient information with unauthorized individuals. I completely understand. David chose his words carefully. I'm not asking for medical details. I'm interested in making an anonymous donation to cover the cost of her surgery. There was a pause on the other end. An anonymous donation? Exactly. $200,000. I'd like the family to believe it came from a medical scholarship or social support program, something that wouldn't raise suspicion. Mr. Miller, that's extremely generous. May I ask what your relationship is to the patient? Let's just say I owe the Santos family a great deal. David paused. Is it possible to arrange this without revealing my name? Yes, we have an anonymous donor program for cases like this. I can schedule the surgery for next week if the funds are in place. They will be. I'll transfer the money today. On Thursday afternoon, Ana got a phone call that changed everything. Miss Santos? Dr. Rodriguez's voice sounded cheerful. I have wonderful news about Maria. Ana felt her heart race. Is she okay? She's stable, but this is something else. We've been approved for a federal medical aid program for severe heart cases. Maria's surgery will be fully covered. Ana almost dropped the phone. What do you mean? We never applied for any program. Sometimes hospitals apply automatically for eligible patients. What matters is we can schedule the surgery for next Tuesday. When she hung up, Ana was crying with relief. She ran to Maria's room where her sister was resting. Maria, Ana gently shook her. We did it. The surgery will be completely covered. Maria slowly opened her eyes, still drowsy from the medication. What do you mean? A government program. They're paying for everything. Anna hugged her sister carefully. You're going to be okay, Maria. You're going to be completely okay. David found out his donation had gone through when Dr. Seth Rodriguez called to confirm the surgery was scheduled. He felt a kind of satisfaction he hadn't felt in years, the feeling of doing something truly good without expecting anything in return. But there was still the matter of regaining Anna's trust. And for that, he needed a different kind of plan. On Friday night, David was walking through Millennium Park when he had an idea. Anna had mentioned that she worked extra jobs on weekends to save money. Maybe she was still doing that, even after losing her job at Miller Technologies. David spent all of Saturday looking for her. He visited cafes, restaurants, and offices that hired weekend cleaning staff. Finally, at 5 in the afternoon, he found her. Anna was cleaning the windows of a small accounting office on North Michigan Avenue. She wore simple clothes and had her hair tied back in a ponytail. Even while doing manual labor, she carried herself with a quiet dignity that David found inspiring. He waited across the street until she finished and came out of the building. Anna, he approached carefully. She turned, surprised and clearly annoyed. Are you following me now? No. I mean, yes, but not the way you think. David stumbled over his words. I heard about Maria's surgery, that it was approved by a government program. Anna looked at him with suspicion. So what? I'm happy for you. Truly happy. Thank you. She started walking toward the subway station. David walked alongside her. Anna, can I talk to you? Just 5 minutes? About what? About how awful I feel about what happened. About how you were right about everything. About how I want to make things right this time. Anna stopped and looked at him. David, I understand you feel guilty, but like I said before, I don't need your pity. It's not pity. David took a deep breath. It's admiration, respect, and something more I'm still trying to figure out. Anna frowned. Something more? You made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. David stepped a little closer. About loyalty, about courage, about doing the right thing, even when it's hard. David, please let me finish. He went on. You risked everything to save me from betrayal, and when it was my turn to stand up for you, I failed. But that taught me something important about who I really am and who I want to become. Anna looked at him in silence for a long moment. And who do you want to become? Someone worthy of the courage you showed. Someone who doesn't let fear or blind loyalty get in the way of doing what's right. The cold Chicago wind blew between them, and Anna pulled her coat tighter around her. It's chilly out here, she said, glancing around. There's a coffee shop on the corner. We can talk there. The small cafe was nearly empty. They sat at a table by the window, 2 steaming cups of hot chocolate between them. So, Anna said, stirring her drink with a small spoon, what did you find out about Leandro and Sophia? David pulled a folder from his backpack and laid it on the table. Everything. The entire plan. He opened the folder and showed her the documents. The shell company, the wire transfers, the fake contract. They were planning to steal 80% of my assets. Anna flipped through the papers, and David saw her eyes widen as she read. This is worse than I imagined. She looked up at him. What are you going to do? Expose them publicly on Monday. David leaned in closer. But I need your help. My help? You still have the original photos, the recordings. I need your evidence to complete the case. Anna fell silent, thinking it over. And then, after Leandro and Sophia are exposed, then David hesitated. Then I'd like you to come back to the company, not as a cleaner, as vice president of operations. Anna nearly choked on her hot chocolate. Vice president? You have the knowledge, the experience, and the integrity. The company needs people like you in leadership. David, this is... Anna shook her head. It's crazy. You're not just anything, David interrupted. You're smart, brave, and honest. Those are exactly the qualities I need by my side. They sat quietly for a few minutes, the weight of the conversation settling between them. Can I think about it? Anna asked finally. Of course. But Anna... David reached across the table, his hand almost touching hers. No matter what you decide about the job, I'd like to have you in my life, in some way. Anna looked at his hand, then at his eyes. David, we come from very different worlds. No, he said, shaking his head. I used to think that, but I don't anymore. We're just 2 people who believe in doing what's right, even when it's hard. When they left the cafe, night had fallen. The lights of Chicago sparkled around them, creating an almost magical atmosphere. They walked slowly toward the subway station, neither in a hurry to end the night. "David," Anna said as they reached the entrance to the station, "thank you for today, for listening, for being different than I thought you were. And thank you for giving me a second chance. I know I didn't deserve it." They stood under the streetlights, looking at each other. Anna looked beautiful, her cheeks pink from the cold, her eyes shining under the stars. "Anna," David stepped closer. "Yes? Can I kiss you?" Anna hesitated only for a second, then nodded. David kissed her gently at first, then more confidently as she responded. It was a sweet kiss, full of promises and new beginnings. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling. "This just made things more complicated," Anna said, but her smile showed she didn't mind. "The best things in life usually do," David replied. Anna laughed and walked toward the subway entrance. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said, "to go over the plan for Monday. And to talk about us." She confirmed before disappearing down the stairs. David stood on the sidewalk for several minutes, gazing at the stars above Chicago. For the first time in weeks, he felt like everything was going to be okay. On Monday, he would face Leandro and Sophia. But this time, he wouldn't be alone. He would have Anna by his side, and that made all the difference. On Monday morning, David arrived at the office determined to carry out his plan. He had spent all of Sunday with Anna, planning every detail of how to expose Leandro and Sophia. They had scheduled a board meeting for 2 o'clock, where they would present all the evidence of the betrayal. David stored the incriminating documents in his personal safe and prepared copies to hand out during the meeting. He was nervous, but confident. Anna would arrive at noon to go over the final details. At 10 o'clock, Leandro walked into his office without knocking. "David, we need to talk." His voice had a tone David had never heard before, cold, threatening. "Sure," David said, trying to stay calm. "About what?" Leandro closed the door behind him and stepped closer to David's desk. "About your little late-night investigation on Friday." David's blood ran cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, David." Leandro sat down in the chair across from the desk, crossing his legs with arrogance. "Do you think I'm stupid? That I wouldn't notice someone accessing confidential files in the middle of the night?" David kept a neutral expression, but inside, he was panicking. "I have the right to access any file in my own company." "Oh yes, your company." Leandro gave a humorless laugh. "For now." "What's that supposed to mean?" Leandro pulled his phone from his pocket and placed it on the table. "It means I know exactly what you found. I know you talked to the cleaning lady. I know you're planning to expose me this afternoon." David stood up suddenly. How do I know?" Leandro interrupted. "David, you're even more naive than I thought. You think I don't have people keeping me informed about your every move?" The office door opened again, and Sophia walked in. She looked perfect as always, but there was something cold and cruel in her eyes that David had never seen before. "Hello, David." She walked over and kissed Leandro on the cheek. "I missed you over the weekend." "Sophia?" David looked at her, confused. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to witness your surrender." She sat on the armrest of Leandro's chair, running her fingers through his hair possessively. "Surrender?" Leandro smiled and unlocked his phone. "David, you're going to cancel that ridiculous board meeting. You're going to destroy all the evidence you've gathered, and you're going to sign the Sterling Corporation contract today. Are you out of your mind? After what I found out about you two?" "No," Leandro said, turning the phone toward David. "After what I found out about you." On the screen, David saw pictures of himself entering Anna's building in Pilsen, talking to her at the cafe, kissing her on the street. "So what?" David frowned. "There's nothing wrong with—" "Oh, isn't there?" Sophia leaned forward. "David, you used inside company information to locate a former employee. Then you used company funds to pay for her sister's surgery." David felt the ground shift under him. "How do you know about the anonymous $200,000 donation?" Leandro laughed. David, did you really think you could move that kind of money without me knowing? That doesn't prove anything illegal. It proves abuse of power." Sophia pulled a folder from her purse. It proves you were romantically involved with an employee who had access to sensitive information. It proves you paid a large amount of money to influence a witness. David grabbed the documents and flipped through them. They were forged contracts, fake emails, altered bank records. Everything designed to make it look like he had used the company to benefit Anna in exchange for favors. "This is all fake." "Of course it is," Leandro said, standing up. "But who's going to believe you? A CEO who got involved with a cleaning lady and used company money to impress her?" "You can't do this." "We can, and we will," Sophia said, stepping closer to David. "Unless you cooperate." David looked at Leandro and Sophia, two people he had once loved and trusted completely, and now he saw that he had never really known them. "What do you want?" "I already told you," Leandro said, sitting back down. "Cancel the meeting, destroy the evidence, sign the contract." "And if I don't?" Leandro tapped his phone again and showed David another photo. It was Anna and Maria leaving the hospital after an appointment. "Then Miss Santos and her sick sister will find out what happens to people who stick their noses where they don't belong." David felt pure rage run through him. "Don't you dare threaten them." "It's not a threat, David. It's a promise," Leandro said, putting his phone away. "I have contacts all over Chicago. One phone call from me, and Ana Santos won't find work anywhere. And her little sister. Well, accidents happen, especially with people in poor health. You're a monster." "I'm a businessman," Leandro said, adjusting his tie. "And you, my old friend, are a problem that needs to be dealt with." David looked at Sophia, searching for some trace of the woman he had fallen in love with years ago. "Sophia, do you really agree with this? Threatening innocent people?" Sophia laughed, a cold, calculated sound. "David, you were always so romantic, so idealistic." She stepped closer to him. "Do you really think I broke up with you because we weren't compatible? Didn't you? I broke up with you because you were poor." Her words hit like a slap. "Well, not poor exactly, but limited. You were building a small company, dreaming small. Leandro offered me the chance to be truly wealthy." David stared at her, stunned. "You never loved me." "I loved your ambitions. I loved the potential of what you could become," Sophia said, touching his face with fake tenderness. "But when I saw that Leandro was willing to do whatever it took to succeed, while you clung to your moral principles, well, the choice was obvious." "Moral principles?" David pulled her hand away. "You say that like it's a bad thing." "In the business world, it is," Leandro said as he stepped closer. "David, you built a $500 million company while limiting yourself with ethics and morals. Just imagine what you could have achieved if you'd been a little more flexible." "I don't want to achieve anything that way." "And that's why you'll lose everything," Sophia said, moving to stand next to Leandro. "Because in the end, people like you always lose to people like us." David looked at the two of them, holding hands, smiling with cruelty. 15 years of friendship with Leandro, 2 years in a relationship with Sophia, all built on lies. "You have 1 hour to decide," Leandro said, checking his expensive wristwatch. "Noon. Either you sign the contract or we destroy you and everything you care about." "And Anna?" David asked. "If I cooperate, will you leave her alone?" "If you cooperate and keep your mouth shut, Ana Santos and her sister can go on living their small, insignificant lives in peace," Leandro said, opening the door. "But if you try to cross us again—" He didn't finish the sentence, but the threat was clear. After they left, David sank into his chair. He looked out the window at Chicago, the city he'd called home for most of his adult life. Now it felt cold and unfamiliar. His phone rang. It was Anna. "David, I'm arriving at the building. Is everything ready for the meeting?" David closed his eyes. If he told Anna the truth, he'd be putting her and Maria in danger. But if he lied, "David, are you there?" "I'm here," he said, his voice rough. "Anna, about the meeting?" "Yes?" David looked at the folder with the evidence on his desk. Then he looked at the forged documents Sophia had left. 2 versions of the truth. One that could save his company, the other that could protect the woman he was beginning to love. "I need to cancel it." "Cancel? Why?" "Legal complications. We need more time." There was silence on the other end. "David, are you okay? You sound strange." "I'm fine," he lied, hating himself for it. "Just a change of plans." "All right. Talk later?" "Of course." David ended the call and buried his face in his hands. For the first time in his adult life, he felt completely defeated. Leandro and Sofia had won, and he didn't know how to fight people who were willing to threaten the innocent. Outside, Anna stood on the sidewalk in front of the Miller Technologies building, looking up with a strange feeling that something was very wrong. Inside the office, David stared at the contract from Sterling Corporation. In a few hours, he would sign away everything. But at least Anna and Maria would be safe. Or at least, that's what he hoped. Anna knew something wasn't right. The sudden cancellation, the strange tone in David's voice, the way he avoided eye contact when they finally saw each other in the lobby. After 15 years working with people, she had learned how to read signs. That night, Anna decided to investigate on her own. As a former cleaning staff member, she knew every entrance and exit of the Miller Technologies building. At 9 p.m., with only the night security staff on duty, she used her knowledge of access codes, which were rarely changed, to enter through the basement. She took the service stairs to the executive floor. Her goal was simple: to find out why David had changed his mind so suddenly. In Leandro's office, she found what she was looking for. Unlocked drawers, papers scattered across the desk, signs of someone in a hurry. Anna took pictures of everything with her phone: fake contracts with David's signature, fabricated emails, manipulated bank records. But what made her blood run cold were printed photos of her and Maria leaving the hospital, with handwritten notes in the margins: secondary target and pressure point. Anna understood immediately. Leandro had found out about David's investigation and was using her and Maria as leverage. She quickly searched for recording devices. Inside a pen holder on Leandro's desk, she found a small digital recorder, probably used to capture incriminating conversations. Anna checked the audio files. There were dozens of recordings, including conversations between Leandro and Sofia planning the betrayal. But the most recent one, from earlier that afternoon, made her heart race. It was the recording of Leandro threatening David, using her and Maria as blackmail. Anna copied all the files to her phone and left the building just as quietly as she had entered. At 6 a.m. on Tuesday, Anna rang the doorbell at David's apartment in Lincoln Park. He answered in a bathrobe, looking like he hadn't slept. "Anna, what are you doing here so early?" "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." David let her in, clearly nervous. "Anna, about yesterday." "There are complications you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Anna pulled her phone from her purse. "I know Leandro is blackmailing you because of me." David stared at her, shocked. "How did you—" "I heard the recording." Anna pressed play, and Leandro's threatening voice echoed through the apartment. When the recording ended, David sat heavily on the couch. "Anna, you don't understand the danger. He threatened you and Maria." "I can't take that risk." "David?" Anna sat beside him. "Leandro made a fatal mistake. He recorded his own threats." David lifted his head, a spark of hope in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I have proof of everything. The recordings, the forged documents, the surveillance photos." Anna showed him her phone. "We have enough to bring them down completely." "But what about the threats? If we expose them, they can't hurt us if they're behind bars." Anna took David's hands. "Trust me, we have to act today before they realize we've uncovered their scheme." David looked at her for a long moment. The courage in her eyes, the determination in her voice. "What do you suggest?" "Reschedule the board meeting for today. 2 o'clock. Anna stood and paced the room as she thought, "But this time we'll be ready for them." At 2 p.m, the Miller Technologies auditorium was full. All board members were present, along with representatives from Sterling Corporation and several company executives. David stood on stage, visibly nervous. Leandro and Sofia were seated in the front row, confident smiles on their faces. "Ladies and gentlemen," David began, "I've called this meeting to make some important announcements about the future of Miller Technologies." Leandro gave him an encouraging nod, clearly expecting David to announce the merger. "First, I'd like to introduce our new Vice President of Operations, Anna Santos." A ripple of surprise moved through the auditorium as Anna stepped onto the stage. Many recognized her as the former cleaner who had been fired for spying. Leandro stood up abruptly. "David, this is ridiculous. You can't—" "Please sit down, Mr. Vega." David interrupted firmly. "You'll have your chance to speak soon." Anna stepped up to the microphone. "Good afternoon. I know many of you remember the unfortunate circumstances of my last appearance in this auditorium. Her voice was steady and clear. Today, I'm here to reveal the truth behind those events. Anna turned on a projector, and the first image appeared on the screen. The forged Sterling Corporation merger contract. This is the version of the merger agreement that was shown to Mr. Miller. Anna pointed to the numbers on the screen. According to this document, David Miller would retain 65% control of the company after the merger. She changed to the next slide. And this is the actual version of the contract, the one they intended to use at signing. Here, David Miller would retain only 15% control. The room erupted in murmurs. Leandro had gone pale. "This is outrageous," Sophia stood. "These images are fake? Are they?" Anna gave her a cold smile. "Then maybe you'd rather hear this." She pressed play on the sound system. Leandro's voice echoed clearly throughout the auditorium. "David is completely naive. 15 years of friendship blinded him to any possibility of betrayal. By the time he realizes what's happened, we'll have full control of the assets and be out of the country." The room fell completely silent. All eyes turned to Leandro, who was clearly panicking. That was taken out of context," he stammered. "Was it?" Anna moved on to the next recording. "And this." Sophia's voice filled the auditorium. "It's not hate, it's ambition. David was a good boyfriend, but he was always limited, too small for my dreams. With you, I can have everything I ever wanted." Sophia was furious but tried to stay composed. "These recordings are illegal. They were obtained without consent." "Actually," Anna turned to her, "they were taken from a recording device found in Mr. Vega's office, a device he used to record his own conversations." David stepped back up to the microphone. "There's more." He nodded to Anna, who projected the bank records onto the screen. $23 million transferred from Miller Technologies accounts to Mr. Vega's personal accounts, Anna pointed out. Money that was supposed to be used for legitimate merger preparations. Leandro stood up, desperate. "David, we've been friends for 15 years. Are you really going to believe this? This brave woman who risked everything to save me from betrayal?" David interrupted. "Yes, Leandro, I'm going to believe her, because unlike you, she never lied to me." Mr. Roberto, the main representative of Sterling Corporation, stood up. "Mr. Miller, Sterling Corporation had no knowledge of these irregularities. We are a legitimate company that was deceived by dishonest representatives." "We completely understand," David nodded. "In fact, we'd like to discuss a legitimate merger with you in the future, on honest terms." Leandro looked around the auditorium, seeing only faces full of disapproval and disgust. At last, his mask of being a respectable executive had fully dropped. "You know what?" he said with a bitter laugh. "I don't regret a thing. David, you were always too weak to do what needed to be done. You deserve to lose everything. And you deserve what's coming to you," said a new voice echoing through the auditorium. Everyone turned to see Detective Johnson from the Chicago Police entering with two other officers. "Leandro Vega and Sofia Delgado, you are under arrest for corporate fraud, document forgery, and attempted extortion." As Leandro and Sofia were handcuffed, the auditorium broke into applause. Anna smiled at David, who returned the look with deep gratitude and something more. "How did you know to come here?" David asked the detective. "Miss Santos contacted us this morning with the evidence," the detective replied with a smile. "Cases like this, with such clear proof, are a prosecutor's dream." As Leandro and Sofia were escorted out, Leandro shouted at David, "This isn't over. I have lawyers. I have contacts." "You had them?" David replied calmly. "Now all you have is a jail cell." When the auditorium finally emptied, David and Anna were left alone on stage. "So," Anna said with a smile, "how was my first day as vice president?" "Unforgettable." David pulled her into his arms. "Anna, you saved me in every possible way." "We saved each other," she said, gently touching his face. "Together." David kissed her right there, on the stage where just hours earlier his life had nearly been torn apart. Now, with Anna in his arms, he felt like he was finally building something real. "And now?" Anna asked when their kiss ended. "Now," David smiled, "we have a company to rebuild and a life to build, together." Outside the building, the sound of police sirens faded into the distance, carrying away 15 years of false friendship and 2 years of fake love. But inside the building, something true and beautiful was just beginning. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Anna was finishing her review of the financial reports in her new office, a spacious room on the same executive floor as David's, with a view of Lake Michigan. As vice president of Miller Technologies, she had already implemented changes that were showing impressive results. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Come in," she said, without looking up from the documents. "Madam Vice President, do you have a minute for your CEO?" David's playful voice made her smile. "I always have time for my boss." Anna finally looked up and was surprised. David was holding a bouquet of red roses. "What's this?" "An apology." David walked over to her desk. "I know you've been working non-stop these past 2 weeks, and I haven't shown enough how much I appreciate everything you've done." Anna stood up, touched by the gesture. "David, you don't have to." "I do." He handed her the flowers. "Anna, you didn't just save my company. You saved my life. You helped me see the man I truly want to be. You were already a good man. You just needed to learn to trust the right instincts." David smiled and checked the time. "It's 5:30. How about we get out of here? I have a surprise for you." David drove through the streets of Chicago in silence, a mysterious smile on his face. Anna tried several times to guess where they were going, but he simply said it was a surprise. Finally, they stopped at North Avenue Beach. The October sun was setting over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "What are we doing here?" Anna asked as they walked along the sand. "Do you remember the first time we really talked?" David stopped and turned to her. "In the break room, when you showed me the evidence?" "Of course. You said if I was lying, it would be my last day at the company. And you said if you stayed silent and I lost everything, you'd never forgive yourself." David took her hands. "Anna, that night you showed me what real courage looks like." Anna felt her heart race. There was something different in David's voice, an intensity she had never heard before. "David, let me finish," he said, taking a deep breath. "All my life, I thought I knew what success meant: money, power, recognition. But when I almost lost everything, I realized none of that matters without the right person by your side." David let go of her hands and, to Anna's surprise, knelt down in the sand in front of her. "Anna Santos." His voice was emotional but steady. "You came into my life as a brave cleaning lady and became my savior, my partner, my best friend, and the love of my life." Anna brought her hands to her mouth, tears welling up in her eyes. "You taught me that a person's true worth isn't in the job they hold, but in the character they show." David pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "You taught me that sometimes the most important people in our lives are the ones who have the courage to tell us the hard truths." He opened the box, revealing a simple yet elegant ring with a single diamond, sparkling in the golden light of the setting sun. "Anna, I can't imagine building a future without you. Will you marry me?" Tears were now streaming down Anna's face. She looked at the man kneeling in front of her, the same man who once chose a false friendship over defending her, but who had grown and become someone truly worthy of her love. "David," her voice trembled. "Yes, of course, yes." David stood quickly and slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "How did you know my size?" Anna asked, admiring the ring. "I asked Maria for help," David smiled. "Actually, I asked for her blessing first. I told her you're the most important person in her life, and that I needed to promise to take care of both of you." "And what did you promise?" "That I'd dedicate my life to making you happy," David said, kissing her gently. "And that our family would always come first." Anna kissed him back, feeling like her heart might burst from happiness. In the background, the waves of Lake Michigan rolled gently onto the shore, and the first stars began to appear in the Chicago sky. "I love you, David Miller," she whispered. "And I love you, future Mrs. Anna Miller." 3 months later, autumn in Chicago had painted the trees in Millennium Park with golden and red tones. Anna stood in front of the mirror in her new apartment. She and David had moved in together the month before, adjusting the simple but elegant wedding dress she had chosen. "You look absolutely radiant," Maria said as she entered the room. Her heart surgery had been a complete success, and she looked healthier and more vibrant than ever. "Nervous," Anna admitted. "It's strange. When David proposed, I was so sure. But now on the day, now you're realizing you're marrying the man you love and becoming part of a beautiful family," Maria said, straightening her sister's veil. "Anna, you deserve all this happiness." Dr. Rodriguez arrived with Maria's latest test results. Perfect heart function, excellent outlook. The sisters hugged, crying with relief and joy. An hour later, Anna walked down the glass aisle at the Lincoln Park Conservatory. The tropical greenery created a magical setting, and about 50 guests waited among palm trees and orchids. David stood at the altar, glowing with happiness. When he saw Anna, his face lit up with that smile that always made her heart race. "You look stunning," he whispered when she reached him. "And you look perfect," Anna whispered back. Reverend Williams began the ceremony, speaking about love, courage, and second chances. When it was time for the vows, David spoke first. "Anna, you came into my life whispering a truth I didn't want to hear. You taught me that real strength comes from integrity, and that true love is built on trust and mutual respect. I promise to be worthy of your courage every day of our lives." Anna wiped away a tear before speaking. "David, you've shown me that some people really do change, that some men truly keep their promises. I promise to stand by your side as your partner in everything, through joy and hardship." When they exchanged rings and kissed as husband and wife, the conservatory erupted in applause. At the reception, Don Roberto gave a toast to the company's success. In the 3 months since Anna had become vice president, Miller Technologies had grown by 30% and secured major partnerships. "So, what's next for the future?" asked Martha from HR. Anna looked at David, then at Maria, who was happily dancing. "Well," Anna said with a mysterious smile, "there's actually one surprise we haven't shared with anyone yet." David looked at her, curious. "David? I'm pregnant," Anna said, gently touching her stomach. 6 weeks. Silence gave way to an explosion of joy. David lifted her into his arms and spun her around as everyone clapped and cheered. Later, on the rooftop of the hotel where they would spend their honeymoon, David and Anna stood holding each other, looking out at the lights of Chicago below. "From janitor and CEO to husband and wife expecting a child," Anna said. "What an incredible journey." "The best part," David said, kissing the top of her head, "is that our story is just beginning." "David?" Anna turned in his arms. "Yes? Thank you for becoming the man I always knew you could be. Thank you for never giving up on me." They kissed under the stars of Chicago. What did you think of Anna and David's story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate this story? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to keep up with all our stories. And check out more inspiring stories by clicking right here on the end screen.